Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1321B, and today's date is July 2nd, 2017, and the title of the episode is It's All Falling Apart. The Entire Illusion is Coming to an End. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. On Saturday, I uploaded an interview with V, the guerrilla economist, and CJ, the producer. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So if you go over to YouTube and you type in X22 Report Spotlight, it will bring you to that video. Or you can come over to the X22Report.com site or the NewsSentinel.com site. Scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You'll see the video there, and you can play it right on the site. Or you can go to Steemit, which is steemit.com/@X22Report. It will bring you right to the video, and you can watch the video right on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, as we know, the government, they set aside billions and billions of dollars annually on foreign aid. Where this money goes, we're not really sure. And guess what? The watchdog who looks at all of this, they don't know where it goes either. Right now, the U.S. government watchdog has been looking at this, and they're saying that the State Department, they don't really know, and they can't accurately track around $32 billion spent annually on foreign aid. Now, they released a new report, and the report says, and this is released by the State Department Office of the Inspector General, said that the State Department is not able to obtain timely and accurate data necessary to provide central oversight of foreign assistance activities and meet statutory and regulatory reporting requirements. And there's around $32 billion of this being spent for international development, USAID, for their efforts to support U.S. policy objectives around the world, including security, public health, humanitarian relief, non-proliferation. However, the OIG claims that the state has still not developed the ability to properly manage the funds, and they can't figure out where this goes. Now, the report comes after a budget proposal from Trump's administration, which suggests cutting this funding by 28% and putting in a system to track where this money flows and where it goes. And we know that most likely a lot of these funds are not going to where they say they are going. And we know that a lot of these organizations, the NGOs and organizations like USAID, these are fronts. They take the money in, they disperse it, nobody keeps track, who knows where they go, and we know that they're probably going to certain organizations that are creating maybe regime change in other countries, maybe going to terrorist groups or other places. Now, it looks like the Democrats, they are pushing their agenda right now, and it looks like there are about 25 House Democrats that they're going to back this bill to impeach Trump. And what they're trying to do now, since the Russian collusion thing has completely failed, the Russian hacking thing has completely failed, it's all turning out to be fake, phony, and false, and we know that they completely made all of this up. It looks like Nancy Pelosi, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and others are getting together, creating, and they're working on this bill to impeach Trump. Now, they're going to try to use Article 4 to the 25th Amendment. In the abstract, the amendment itself is about presidential succession and includes language about the power of the office when a president is incapacitated. Now, remember, Congress would have to vote on this, or they can get the vice president and majority of the executive branch's cabinet to get together, and they could do this under the 25th Amendment. Now, is this really going to work? Most likely not. I think they're just trying anything they possibly can because they have nothing left. Now, we know that Trump put together this panel, this voter fraud panel, to investigate voter fraud in all the different states. And it looks like there are 29 states that are refusing to comply with his Election Fraud Commission's request for voter data to a commission he created to investigate the alleged voter fraud. And they're saying that, yeah, we're not handing this information over. And Trump is out there saying, well, why not? Why don't these states want to cooperate to crack down on voter fraud? What are they trying to hide? And this commission, which is the Trump's Presidential Advisory Commission on Election Integrity, well, we know it was formed to find out if there are millions of illegal people voting. Are there dead people that are put into the category? Are there illegal immigrants voting? Where are all these votes coming from? Can we basically go into the system and account for all these votes? And we can see that this panel sent letters to 50 states, and 29 of them said, listen, we're not going to abide by this whatsoever. And they said, absolutely not. Now, the information that was requested was the last 4 digits of Social Security numbers, not the full Social Security number, an address, a birth date, political affiliation, felony convictions, and voting histories. And the request was for information publicly available under each state's law. And the states are saying, well, no, this is private. We don't want to give this out. But this is public information that anyone can walk into these different voting areas and get this information. And the question is, are they hiding something? Why don't they want to cooperate? Why don't they want to say, listen, our voting system is on the up and up? Because I don't think they really know who's voting and who's not voting. And if we go back in time to a documentary film called Hacking Democracy with Bev Harris, she's walked into many of these voting areas and she found the voting information in the garbage. They didn't want to hand it over to her, and she found that there were many, many discrepancies on what really happened, and the people that were in charge, they had no clue, or they were pretending they had no clue what was really going on. And we can see that there are many states, Arizona, California, Connecticut, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Mississippi, Montana, and many, many others that are saying, we are not at all going to cooperate with this whatsoever. So we'll have to see where this goes and how this proceeds. Now, we know that Trump and South Korean President Moon Jae In, they met in the White House. And we see all over the corporate media, they were using the phrase, the error of strategic patience with North Korea regime has failed. Many years that it's failed, and frankly, that patience is over, and this was coming from Donald Trump. And many people are out there saying, well, this means war. That's what he's getting at. Well, we really need to look at this for a second. First of all, Moon Jae In, he was talking about having diplomatic relations with North Korea. Is North Korea this incredible, fantastic place? No, there are issues within the country. Otto Warmbier, who came back, he passed away. This should have never happened. And we need to look at what he really meant by this. First of all, strategic patience. That was the strategy of the Obama administration, where they did nothing. They didn't want to speak to North Korea. They didn't want to have words with North Korea. They just wanted to use the armed forces and provocation to force North Korea. And we can see from this statement, the error of strategic patience with North Korea regime has failed. Obama's strategy has failed by staying silent and by using force to get their way. It didn't work. And his patience with his strategy with North Korea is over. And yes, he went on to say that the North Korean dictatorship has no regard for safety and security for its people or its neighbors and has no respect for human life, as we can see with Otto Warmbier. And we see right now that Moon Jae In and Trump, well, they're looking at the situation and they're saying, well, we need to work with other allies in the region, including Japan, China, like they're working with now, and other global partners, on a range of diplomatic, security, and economic measures to protect our allies and our own citizens from North Korea. Now, Trump and Moon Jae In, well, they agree about bringing peace to the area. The threat and provocation of North Korea will be met with a stern response. That response will employ both sanctions and dialogue in a phased and comprehensive approach to denuclearizing North Korea. So it looks like from staying silent, using provocation and the armed forces, they're going to move towards sanctions, which we know is not going to work, and dialogue. That's the important part of this, because we can see that North Korea has already said, listen, we will stop with what we are doing if the U.S. stops the provocations with all these drills in South Korea. And we're going to have to see how this moves forward, because I don't think this means war. I don't think it means what the corporate media is painting this out to be. This means we're not going to use the same strategy that Obama used with staying silent, not talking to North Korea, having no political discussion with them, and just using the armed forces and force to get them to do what we want them to do. So I think things are changing in this area. Trump has also instructed U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer to start renegotiating the current trade agreement between the United States and South Korea. And remember, before Moon Jae In became South Korean president, they snuck in the THAAD missile system and didn't really report it. This was under the Obama administration. This was the deep state that was doing this. The deep state, they're trying to get to North Korea. This whole thing has to be calmed down, because otherwise we enter into war. And we can see this is the approach that is being taken right now. We also see out in the Philippines, nearly 40 days after the battle between the Philippine Army and the Islamic State, it looks like the armed forces of the Philippines, they have finally contained the Islamic State, and it looks like their days are completely numbered, and that threat looks like it's almost over with right now. We see Turkey right now. They have completed the deal with Russia. They have now purchased the S-400 missile system. Remember, the S-400 is a high-altitude, long-range air defense system with an active radar guidance and a range of about 400 kilometers. It can detect fifth-generation warplanes from a distance of up to 150 kilometers away. And we can see right now with Qatar that there's one day until the Saudi ultimatum expires. And Qatar is saying, listen, we're not changing our stance right now at all. We are not meeting any of the demands of Saudi Arabia. Now, what's very interesting is that Putin, well, he is stressing the importance of political diplomatic efforts aimed at overcoming differences of opinion and the normalization of the difficult situation that exists between the Gulf states and Qatar. Russia is also speaking with the Qatari leaders about the cooperation between their countries in energy and investment. And we can see what is happening right now. The entire Middle East is being broken apart. And the reason for this is because things are changing now. The petrodollar system is at its endgame. These different Middle Eastern countries, well, they're going to have to make deals, economic deals, with other countries to survive right now. And we can see right now that Qatar is saying that they are open to negotiations, but they're not going to bow to the demands of the Gulf nations. So we'll have to see by tomorrow what happens. Will the deep state do something to set this whole thing and unravel it and maybe start a war? Or does it die down and nothing happens and the Gulf nations, Qatar, they start to negotiate? The one thing that it did do, it brought out that these Gulf nations, Qatar, and it's not just Qatar, it's Saudi Arabia, it's Jordan, it's United Arab Emirates, they all dealt in terrorism. Al-Sham, Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State. These nations were supporting it. These nations were funding it. And we know that this was all intertwined with the deep state, the United States government, central bankers, Israel, and many others. Out in Syria, we can see that they have the first ever woman to assume the rank of brigadier general in the Syrian armed forces, Nibal Madhat Badar. She is now a general in the armed forces. And we can see that everything the corporate media is trying to tell us is actually the opposite that has been happening out in Syria. And their whole agenda throughout this entire time was to capture Syria, then head into Iran and set up this pipeline, this natural gas pipeline coming from Qatar through Syria up into Europe. But we can see already that Russia has already started the pipeline moving into Turkey, which is going to feed into Europe. Everything is about to change right now. But Israel, we can see, they are not stopping. They have attacked for the 5th time this week the southern part of Syria. They targeted the Syrian military artillery positions because they said they were shelled. No one was hurt, of course. It landed in the desert. And they used this to go in and attack this area. Now, one of the reasons why this was probably happening is because the rebels, al-Nusra, they were being beat in this area, and it looks like Well, the Syrian army, they recaptured all the territory, and the Israeli-backed offensive did not work at all. It just didn't work. Now, we know that Representative Tulsi Gabbard, she went to Syria, she looked at the situation, and she realized that, well, it's the terrorists, they're the ones with the problem. And she said that, the United States is backing the terrorists, the coalition forces are backing the terrorists. Rand Paul created legislation, Tulsi Gabbard created legislation, and these two pieces of legislation, well, they were supposed to bar federal agencies from using taxpayer-backed funds to provide weapons, training, intelligence, and any other type of support to support terrorist cells such as Al-Qaeda, Islamic State, and others. And we reported on this before, and it shows who these government officials are truly working for. Because think about this for a second. Only 13 other lawmakers out of hundreds have co-sponsored Gabbard's House bill. And Rand Paul's, no one even co-sponsored it. He has 0. So you can see right now that war is a racket. And remember, there's a lot of lobbyists. There's military and homeland security companies, lobbyists, lawmakers, all profit from war. Trillions of tax dollars flow to companies such as Boeing, Lockheed Martin, IBM, and many others. They invest heavily in weapons, cybersecurity systems, other technologies. This is who our government officials are actually working for, because they want to keep these wars going because it's very profitable. This is why no one's even looking at these bills. If these government officials were actually working for the people, they would say, well, wait a minute, we are funding terrorism? This can't be. We need to stop this. But if you notice, no one's even looking at it. Now, what's very interesting is that we talked about the Belt and Road system that China is developing, and we know that Trump sent a representative over there, and it looks like the United States would like to join this Belt and Road system. And we know the deep state, they're completely against it. They do not want this. This is why they were trying to push their TPP. They wanted that instead of what China was doing. And we can see right now in the area of Pakistan, there was sightings of the Islamic State. There were 2 Chinese teachers that were abducted and murdered by militants from the Islamic State. Now, in reality, the terror attack was very precise in terms of location and purpose. Remember, the U.S., the intelligence agencies, they're using proxies to disrupt China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And this is the CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. It is a complex and expanding system of rail, roads, ports, and other infrastructure projects built jointly together with the Pakistani government to facilitate regional economic growth. This is part of the One Belt, One Road initiative. And we can see that the deep state, they are moving some of these terrorist groups in this area to disrupt what is going on here. And this shows us once again how much they don't want this to proceed, because they will lose control. And what is happening right now, they are becoming desperate, the debate. They're losing control in all of these areas. And this was not a coincidence. This was specifically set up to disrupt this entire project. Now, we see that the OPCW report came out about the Syrian gas attack back in April. And the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, they investigated and they said, yes, in the Syrian town of Khan Sheikhoun on April 4th, there was sarin gas that was used. And this is the military base where Trump fired the missiles into this air base and basically did no damage whatsoever. Now, according to the report, the OPCW, well, they didn't do a physical investigation. Now, the Syrian government said they would fly the entire team into this area, into the Shirat Air Base, to do a formal investigation on site. And they refused. Instead, they took information from other sources, and they never visited the location. So they used NGO groups, They used the white helmets. They used social media. They used everything but doing a physical investigation. Now, Russia is out there, Syria is out there saying this entire report can't be real because there was no real investigation that was done. Because most of the sightings and most of the information were taken from the terrorist groups in that area. They explained to the OPCW what exactly happened, which is absolutely ridiculous. Russia is saying, listen, we need an impartial investigation to go to the site and actually investigate what happened. How do you do an investigation without actually going to the site? It's completely impossible. But we could see this is being used. This is being used by certain groups to push their agenda further. Is it going to work? Most likely not. What we're seeing right now is that they're trying everything they possibly can to stop what is happening, and that is the destruction of the deep state. They're losing in Syria. The One Belt, the One Road initiative, that is moving forward. They're going to try to do certain things, but we can see they have nothing left. The illusion around everything that we've been seeing is falling apart. Trump is out there. He's continually calling out fake news, CNN. He's having this battle to show the world that these corporate media outlets, they don't investigate, they don't produce real news, and they continually retract their news and pretend that it really didn't happen, even though they told the lies. And we have undercover work from Project Veritas exposing how they created these lies. And this has to be done because go back to the beginning of when you were first woken up and how you were finding things out and you wanted to tell people about what you found out. And when you told people, even to today, people still don't believe. But think about when you tell them, they think you're crazy. When you tell them that the corporate media is not telling the truth, when this is not what's really happening. What's really happening in the economy is not what you think is happening. Well, people look at you like you're crazy. And if you continually talk to these people and you convince them and you see and you show evidence and you continually show them, then they slowly come around and you go through different stages. You're angry, you're pissed off. Why is this happening? Well, this has to be done to the country now. Think about this process that we're going through because there's millions of people that are sleeping. Millions of people have to be woken up. And this is not an easy task. And the only way to do this is to show them over and over and over again of what is happening and to show that this was fake, this was real. And without doing this, you can't wake people up. What is happening right now is that we're ending and we're going into this period of this economic collapse. Things are going to change rapidly. And it looks like Trump and those individuals want people awake. They want them to understand that we're going through this change. And they need to wake people up. Is it going to work? Well, we don't know. But they need to try because without doing this, it's going to be a complete disaster. We will see riots. We will see people freaking out. We will see total destruction of society. This right now, this time, we need to wake and get people out of the sleep so they understand what is about to happen. Think about it. If everyone is awake and they realize the system's coming down, many people can prepare and they can ride out the storm. If people stay asleep, they think everything is fine. Their whole world is going to be a complete disaster when everything comes down. This is why it's so important to continually call out the fake news and to start waking people up to the truth. Will this be done in time? Well, we don't know. But we know we've been trying to wake as many people up as possible, getting people prepared for what is coming. And we can see already that everything is starting to break down around us. The illusion is starting to disappear. And we're coming to this point in time where it's either you're awake or you're asleep, but the collapse, it's coming. It's going to happen no matter if you're awake or asleep. If you're awake, at least you'll be able to ride it out. If you're asleep, it's going to be a rough time. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.